Joined now by Tyvis Powell. It is another Monday, which means it's time to break down all things Buckeye as they chase the championship here. We got to hear from a lot of Buckeyes on Monday. The biggest news we know now, Ryan Day will officially be calling plays. Tyvis, you say that is not news.
Not shocking. I mean, first of all, with Brian Hartline leaving, you would assume that he would be taking over. I think that even dating back to some games last year, he's always been involved in play calling. I don't think you just give up play calling after you've done it for so many years and you've had success for so many years. So I think he's always been involved. There's been multiple games that I've watched where he's had the play sheet in front of him saying something. So to me, that's a guy that's making play calls anyways. It's not surprising that he's fully coming out and taking over play calling with Brian Hartline leaving.
Do you think that that's helpful? Because I'm a big fan of it. I think it allows for Ohio State. Then if Hartline takes a day, or not saying he will, and understand, it's not Hartline's fault. It's the schedule of college football. But if Hartline takes a day or has to do something, you don't have a hitch there in the offense. You still have, Ryan Day. We didn't get a chance. Should have asked him if he will literally be the one radioing it in. I can't imagine, because that's what he didn't want is, it's not a walkie-talkie, but to be the one that's standing there talking to the players, because then you don't have access to the whole game. You're very locked in.
I think when you look at it from this standpoint, it's good because Hartline, whether you believe it or not, you can't be the head coach at somewhere else and then also be trying to help win a national title somewhere else. So what it does is it takes that responsibility off of Hartline. Now we know the person that's calling the plays is going to be heavily invested because he's going to be here. He's not 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's so hard to have your feet in both places at one time, and that's kind of where Hartline is. So let's take that pressure off of him, give him the role that he's excelled at, and that's making sure that these wide receivers are ready to play in this game, because the last time we seen these wide receivers and that offense, it really wasn't a good showing against Indiana. So therefore, we're giving him his last send-off. He get to be with his guys. He get to get his guys going, and Ryan Day is back calling the plays.
All right, when you look at that, do you think that we see – you say he's been calling.
I believe so, my personal opinion.
Do you think that we see that much difference with the play calling or the way that it looks when they take the field against Miami?
No, because if for Chip Kelly and for Brian Hartline, if you talk to them, they will tell you that this is Ryan Day's offense. No matter who's calling the plays, it's Ryan Day's offense. So therefore, it's going to look like Ryan Day's offense because that's what we've been seeing since he's stepped up and been the OC here for multiple years. So I'm not expecting to see anything different. The Buckeyes are going to do what they're going to do. I think they're going to come out there and they're going to try to establish the line of scrimmage, because when you're going up against these inferior opponents, that is the number one thing you want to do. Who dominates the line of scrimmage? If you can get the push, if your offensive line can get that push and get those seams for those running backs, it opens up so much other plays that can be called. So I think that that's what's going to happen at the beginning of this game. I think that if we got to go down to it and have to throw the ball, I don't think skill for skill they can match up with Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate.
All right, I want to look at the actual matchup here. I want to start with Ohio State's defense versus the Miami offense, because I think this is the biggest discrepancy in this game. I understand everybody wants to talk about Mark Fletcher. He's very good.
Should have been a Buckeye.
He should have been a Buckeye. I am not fearful of any team that comes into a game with running as their threat.
I agree.
And I think that plays into Ohio State's strength. Do you think that this sets up very poorly for Miami's offense, at least as much as I do when it comes to this game?
So if you go back and you look at just this season, how have we done against running backs? The Texas game was the most that we gave up to one single running back. They had 80 yards. I can't remember who it was, but he had 80 yards rushing. Outside of that, we gave up 72 or 74 yards to Katron Allen. And I think we had another 70-yarder in there somewhere.
And Allen was clearly the worst of all. Like, it felt like he was gashing Ohio State for a while.
Correct. They had the one unbalanced play, and I was like, but none of those have ever put us in a situation where it was like, what are we going to do? How are we going to stop this? Our linebackers and our D-line does an incredible job of stopping the run. We've only given up over 100 yards rushing, I think, 3 times on the season as a total. So I'm not worried about the run game at all. Our linebackers with James and that D-line is going to be well gap sound and play discipline, and we tackle really, really well. That's the one thing I love about this defense, is that you don't really see too many missed tackles. They do an unbelievable job of getting running backs down on the ground. So it's going to have to come on the shoulder of Carson Beck And Carson Beck, at the beginning of the season, was very hot. He looked like the guy who everybody thought he would be at Georgia. As the season progressed, he lost it. He was not quite that same guy anymore. And when you watched him against Texas A&M, granted, Texas A&M defensive line is really good, but he didn't really do anything to make me go, oh my goodness, we need to fear this guy. And when you talk about the playmakers on the outside, Malachi Toney, the freshman, really 5'9", 5'10", 5'11" wide receiver, very shifty when he has the ball in his hands. So as long as we're tackling well and condensing space, I'm not really worried about anybody out there on their offensive side of the ball. So yeah, when you look at the offense, to me, like Carson Beck is going to do some things. He's seen everything. So it's not going to be anything that you're going to trick him into doing, because I think he's played a lot of football. He's seen a lot of different looks. So he's experienced in that. But when you just talk about playmakers and guys that can beat you, there's not a lot of guys on that Miami offensive side of the ball that can really threaten this defense.
You think Carson Beck, you don't think Matt Patricia is going to be in his head during this game?
I mean, he's going to try, but I'm saying Carson Beck's played.
Yeah.
What is this, his 5th year in college? He's seen all of that.
Yeah. It's a good point. When I look at Carson Beck, the biggest thing that I see with him is a guy that takes way too many chances. He's reckless with the football.
Yes.
A lot of the time. And reckless does not bode well against this Ohio State defense because they capitalize on recklessness. Do you think that is, I'll give you anywhere. That's, for me, the biggest mismatch in this game. Where to you is the biggest place that there is a massive advantage for one team?
I think that when you look at their defensive line was really good. Ruben Bain is a guy that everybody's going to know his name because that guy is a day 1 pick, probably top 10 pick in this draft. And if you go back and just think about recent games, the last thing we can go off of is the Indiana game. Their defensive line was very disruptive. Julian Sand got sacked 5 times. So when you think about a guy like Ruben Bain, can our offensive line stop a guy like that? What is the way are we going to game plan around that? Because if you allow that defensive line for Miami to be effective, they can make this thing a long game. Obviously, we've seen what Indiana was able to do with their defensive line. So to me, that is the game. That's the matchup of the game. Our offensive line versus their defensive line. They're coming off a game where they're humming. They're doing everything great. They look like a great defensive line, and we're coming off a game where we didn't look so good. So how has the 25 days in between the last time we seen Ohio State and when we'll see them again, how have they improved? Are they able to pick up twists, stunts? Can they handle their one-on-ones? Can our left tackle do a great job against Ruben Bain by himself? Or do we have to always have a tight end on that side to chip and double team him? Like, those things play a factor in what you can call on offense. So to me, that is the matchup of the game.
Is this the best defensive line Ohio State would play in the playoffs?
Outside of Indiana, well, not of Indiana's.
I think they're better
Indiana's
than Indiana.
Lost the guy for the season, celebrating. So I would say probably so.
I think this is the best defensive line that they will play. I do think this secondary can be picked on.
Oh, well, I mean, when you think about what we have,
but
there is no secondary that can just one-on-one. It's not happening.
Yes, but I do think, listen, Marcel Reed. Marcel Reed was. What is the line? He is who he thought he would.
Yeah, he was a mistake waiting to happen, and he made plenty of.
He misses wide open guys.
Carson Beck do too.
I know, but it was crazy to watch in real time how many times Miami tried to help Texas A&M with guys running free, and Marcel was like, "I'm not throwing it to him." Or if I am, I'm throwing it 20 yards over.
Well, I don't think Julian will have that problem.
Yeah.
You can't allow that to happen because guys will run wild on Miami.
And so I do think the last thing I want to ask you when we look at this defensive line, because we know that's the matchup right there, all in one thing. How do you feel about the run game going up against this defensive line? How do you feel about Bojack? Because it seems like in the end that is ironically what's going to somehow decide this game. We've talked about it all year.
It's so funny because you see Mark Fletcher do what he did against Texas A&M, and he's like this unsung hero. But Bo Jackson has way more rushing yards than him on the season. So I think that our offensive line can find ways to create it. It's going to be interesting how they get to the run game. This is those times where I wish Chip Kelly was around because Chip did a really good job of fixing the run game. That's what he does. They run the ball very effective wherever he's at. So this is one of those situations where I'm glad he was here last year. I'm hoping Ryan Day took some nuggets from him to be able to be effective in the run game, because we're going to need Bo Jackson and company to have a really big game. Because if it turns into a 7-on-7, yes, we can win the game like that, but I would much rather be able to run the ball effectively, establish that physicality, and then run play action and things like that. Because you put it on film, now teams have to game plan for everything. I think they're already going to be scared of our wide receivers because of who they are. So if they're going to double those guys, that means the box is light. So we have to be able to run the ball effectively.
I completely agree.
And I'm not standing on the sideline to be like Michael Irvin. You know, I'm not going to get
I would like to.
Whooping trash cans and all that.
I just got to say, that is bizarre. It is bizarre.
I love the passion. I love the passion.
But it feels like he knows the camera's watching.
You think?
And I don't like people that.
I think he's genuine.
You think he's real?
I think he's genuinely like that.
Well, if that's the case.
He's passionate about his Hurricanes.
If that's the case, then that is amazing. That is unbelievable. And then we need Tyvis Powell doing that. All right, Tyvis. That next time we talk, it will be game week.
Yes.
It's going to have to be over Zoom because you're staying back in Columbus. You got a show to do every 6 to 9 a.m.?
Yes.
You didn't even know.
Well, I got so much going on.
It's your own show.
I'm doing morning news now, and, you know.
You are doing morning news. You can see Tyvis. What is it now, every morning?
It's
pretty
much every morning, 5:45 and 6:45.
Yeah, and then listen to him on Tyvis and
T-Bone and
Tyvis. There we go. You don't
97 won the fans.
You don't get your name first yet?
No. T-Bone is a vet. He's a legend here.
I understand that. So. All right. We'll see you back here next Monday breaking down. We'll have media day next Monday, so we'll get to talk to all the guys, and then Tyvis and I will talk and break down everything they had to say. Between now and then, have a great week.